So how did your breakout go? You just finished with that?
It was great. Yeah,
Awesome.
most boring topic in the world.
What was the topic?
Taking a company public.
But you do know a lot about that.
I have sadly done it twice. Yes, yes.
Sadly. Don't say sadly. So let's talk about that because you
Okay.
took a company public during a pandemic.
Yes.
What was that like?
It's a totally different experience. Oh my gosh. Like, first of all, I have only met one of our investors. And it's because they office across town and they said, "Can we actually come and see you guys?" And I looked at my head of IR and said, "I guess that's okay." It's like, this is what people used to do, like sit down
Right.
and have conversations. And it's strange because you do this thing called testing the waters, which is nothing more than like a roadshow. And so you get to sit with 40, 50 meetings, like hundreds of investors. And you used to get on a private plane and hit 18 cities in 8 days, and it's the most inefficient thing in the world. And it's like mindless. It's like on a plane, off a plane, in a suburban, out of a suburban. But during the pandemic, you just log on, log off. And it's so efficient. It is less exhausting physically, but mentally and emotionally, it's like, as a CEO, you end it and you go back on to the next meeting, and then you got to be excited again. It's like you've never told that story ever.
So exhausting in a different way.
It's mentally exhausting, but it's much more effective. It's much more efficient, and I still have only met one of our investors.
That's so crazy.
And actually, when I did the roadshow, I flew to New York. I went to the Four Seasons in downtown, and I sat there for days straight. So I'm looking out the window, and I had this experience like I was in prison. Like, now it's the Four Seasons.
Yeah,
so
I think
it's not,
you're
it's
okay.
not terrible, but I'm seeing light and sun and traffic and energy, and I'm on Zoom. And when I left, you go to the New York Stock Exchange, you ring the bell. Then I came back, I packed my bags, and it was like, I'm a free man. Like, what do I do? I'm going to go out, and it's freedom. And so it's a very different experience. And I actually think it's forever changed how you take a business public.
I was going to ask you, do you think we're ever going back to those
Never.
crazy 18 cities in 5 days or whatever?
I don't. It makes as much sense as a fax machine these days. And it's an old tradition that didn't really, we've just always done it. And you're able to get in front of a lot more investors, which from a company perspective, you actually choose your investors as long as you're oversubscribed. And so it's a better way to do it all the way around.
So I'm wondering about that relational element, like the human element, because there is, I've done a lot of the broadcasting stuff via Zoom and stuff during the pandemic. There is something about like being here in person that maybe you want to read your investors or they want to feel your energy and see, do we want to work with you? So how do you duplicate that?
It's interesting. I actually think that this is something that we haven't figured out yet in business or as a society. It's like, what is the hybrid? What is the best of both worlds? Because we learn to interact with our customers over Zoom. Mm-hmm. And you kind of get a year into it and say, well, I don't have to get on a plane, go to Atlanta, spend, 30 hours for a 2-hour meeting. And it feels good for a while. And then you realize there's something missing. And I think, in this roadshow, in taking a business public, you eventually need to sit down with these people and break bread, in our case, carve meat. And, you need to sit across from a table because, as an investor, you want to understand who are you investing in, not what are you investing in, but who are you investing in. And we are so, we're not beyond the pandemic. We're still in this, hey, it's super efficient, do 1,000 Zoom meetings. Mm-hmm. And I think the same is true for how you do business with your customers, how you interact with your employees. We're not fully back to the office. And we have some people, we're doing pulse surveys. Who wants to come back? How often do you want to come back? And our technology team says, we like it dark and quiet. There's nothing dark and quiet about it. It's like, Traeger's loud and chaotic.
Yeah.
And so we're figuring out how do you get the best of both worlds? You get a lot of efficiency in how you work. You don't have to commute. You don't have to put on anything except a shirt in the morning. But sometimes you need to go in and you need to see people because culture is built in person. Relationships are built in person. You can maintain them virtually, but as a company, we're talking a lot about that. And it's kind of an interesting moment in time where everyone's talking about this great resignation. When people they're just going to quit. And they're going to quit without another job lined up. And one of the greatest triggers to I quit is you have to come back to the office. And that's when people say,
I think that's the scariest thing that people are waiting to hear right now.
And we've chosen not to say it. Now, if you're a company that has great culture that people like to be a part of, then the great resignation is the great attraction. It's like it's an opportunity to get all of these people who are unhappy, but there's something about finding how do you balance being able to be productive, from your living room couch, from your home office, but to ensure that you can get people in together, that you can get in front of a whiteboard and like really riff on things that you just can't do over Zoom.
So you successfully got investors, right? Even without meeting more than one of them.
We
so
were
how
10,
did you
10
do that?
times oversubscribed.
Right. Okay.
You know what? So,
was it the brand that just sold itself and your numbers, or the relationships kind of there?
We have a really good CEO.
Yeah, I've heard that. He's exceptional. He's got great style.
Yeah, there we go. Do you know what? It's I think it's one of the things that you get better at when you do a virtual roadshow is you actually take a lot more meetings, and there's always a banker like lurking in the background virtually, and you get a lot of feedback early on, and so you get a chance to really test and refine. And your schedule's not built around Fidelity's is Boston, and T. Rowe Price is here and Wellington is here. And so geographically you kind of go around the country in a measured way. When you're doing it virtually, you get a chance to practice, and you don't practice on like the biggest funds. And so it actually made us better at storytelling. And that's really like a roadshow is all about storytelling. And eventually you have to deliver the substance, but being able to articulate an entire business strategy in the future and vision in 45 minutes is hard to do. And I remember going on my first roadshow, and it was by like City 11 that I said, I'm getting pretty good at this. And unfortunately, I'd seen all the big investors by then. And so I think there's, you can attract investors by telling the story well. And actually, one thing that's changed in the process since I took a company public 10 years and 1 week before Traeger was that there's this thing called a net roadshow video. And it sounds clinical and dry, and the whole process is like clinical and dry. But what you do with this video is you get a chance to actually express who you are. The investors get a chance before you sit in front of them to meet your management team, to see the inside of the office. I mean, like, I'm grilling on the video and like smoke's coming out. It's like you get a chance to see culture and environment. An investor never goes to your office before they've invested. And so there's some element of this digitization, this virtual nature of roadshow that I actually think provides more information on a team and a culture, even though you're only seeing them sort of across screens.
Totally. Well, you get to create that story with a lot more prep work than just like, here's our team in person. We can't be like grilling and playing spike ball in front of you in the boardroom,
No, absolutely. Yeah. You walk in and you walk out, you go to the restroom, you get in the Suburban, you go to the next meeting.
Right.
So there is something that's more effective. And again, I think at the end of the day, thinking back on what is the right mix of things. Like, we were unfortunately not able, we wanted to go out and cook for our largest investors. Like, show up with a Traeger truck, set up a grill in Manhattan, billowing, rolling smoke, cooking brisket. And so some of those in-person things, I think once you can get those back, that's going to be really valuable as well.
Yeah, make a big impact. Okay, so give me a little snippet at least as to why grills. Like, you were just in your backyard and you're like, I'm going to make a grill
Why grills?
company.
You know what? It had nothing to do with grills for me, actually.
Okay, tell
Now,
me.
it does now. I've fallen in love with cooking at home and our product and our team. But, one of the things that I learned at Skull Candy, as I look back, every entrepreneur says, like, every founder, of course our business is going to succeed. And you realize looking back when you succeeded that there was some element of magic that happened. And it's not easy to create. Magic is not perfectly formulaic. And so I was introduced to Traeger, and it was this like 27-year-old brand up in the Pacific Northwest. I had no interest in grilling. My wife grilled. It's like I should have, like, my wife manned the grill. And it was like this commoditized, boring product category. You know, Home Depot, and you see like inventory stacked everywhere, and all looks the same. So I was not interested in the category. And I remember when someone said, "Hey, it's this wood pellet grill business." It's like, the crap's a wood pellet grill.
Right.
Like, pellets, I'm thinking of like rabbit pellets, and it just didn't sound like food and appetizing. And I went to Oregon one day, and I said, in the world of consumer, the only thing that matters is what a consumer thinks of your product or your brand. Like, how good is the fit? And I remember sitting in this conference room in Wilsonville, Oregon, and I asked the first customer, like, taking notes, "Tell me about your experience with Traeger grills." And his response was, "My Traeger changed my life." And I'm like, whoa, pencil down. Say
Yeah.
that again.
What is happening?
Like, and like, what's going through my mind is, I'm so sorry, your poor life, your background. It's like, but then I heard it over and over and over, like words like that. It's like, my family, we're together more now. And like, I bring my buddies over and we cook brisket on game day. And it's like, we have this great moment, this bonding moment with the guys. And what I realized, that there was this element of magic that Joe Traeger had built back in the mid 80s that never saw the light of day. It just never made its way outside of Oregon. And there were two things. Number one, there was magic in this product market fit. And the other is that so my wife and I are big foodies. And I love this notion that I grew up a fast food kid, like a McDonald's kid. And there's this return to culinary experiences. And like millennials are valuing food as experience, not just as calories and function, more than ever. So there's this groundswell around food, and food brings people together. And when you sit across a great meal, you bond and you have this moment. And I think it's entirely different when you cook it yourself. Mm-hmm. And it's like all of the TLC that goes into cooking, and people say, "I can't believe you cooked this meal, Dad. This is so good." Whoever it may be. And so, like, my vision was that if we can build a product that makes people so good at cooking, and it gets people around the table more often, and it creates these moments that are meaningful, that's cool. It's cool to be able to be an entrepreneur and build a business and create value and disrupt an industry and do something good at the same time.
I love it. And I'm a Traegerite. Is there a name for that? I'm a Traegerer.
I would say you're a member of the Traegerhood.
You've kind of formed like a cult following, a religion. Should we say that? That sounds a little better.
It's Traeger's religion to people, and
Seriously?
It's amazing. I love it. I don't know how we did it, but somehow it seems to be working pretty well.
And it's empowering as someone that I don't have a history of grilling, right? And I have a Traeger now, and you create this meal, and obviously the people eating it are like, "This is incredible," and excited about it. But there's this sense of pride. You're like, "I work at a 5-star restaurant. This is amazing. I'm a chef," and I'm not.
You're spot on. That sense of pride is what, you think about any hobby, when you start to do it well, what do? You do more of it. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you play golf and someone puts a club in your hand, you hit the ball 50 yards further and straighter, what do? You golf more. And you don't say, "Hey, that club made me great." It's like, no, I'm a better golfer. And so food is interesting because you get this, it's very personal. And when you weren't a cook, but you become a cook, and you get this feedback of, "Hey, Caitlin, that was really, really good food. You're a good cook. What do you explore more?"
Right.
And so, like, we really aspire to make cooking not a chore, but a joy. And it's also why our vision is around, it's not just a grill, it's around the community. It's around sharing food and sharing recipes. It's around this connected grill. It's around the software and the content and actually just making cooking fun.
You've made it a total technology. Grilling is now tech.
It is total tech, and it's interesting because in consumer products, there's a ton of technology in a Traeger grill, and we actually invest more in firmware and software and content than we do in the grill. But what's important is that the consumer interacts with and says, it's easy. They don't say, whoa, check out. They don't geek out on the technology. They simply say, like, using a Traeger is easy. It makes me great. And then behind the scenes, there's a lot of complicated things going on. But the consumer just wants to, like, enjoy great food.
And we make you guys take care of all the techie stuff.
We get it done, 100%.
And let's talk about that for one quick second, because
Yeah.
that's what we're here doing, is celebrating the tech community in Utah
Yeah.
at Summit. You've been obviously a part of this world for forever, maybe, right?
Since I was a kid.
Yes, since
Yeah.
you were a kid. What has your experience been like seeing the tech world in Utah just blow up?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I tell you, it's awesome. I moved here 16 years ago. I moved in my parents' basement, like single guy in the basement for like the third time since high school, as a sort of joined my co-founder of Skull Candy, and I said, I'm gonna ski. I'm gonna have a great season. Skull Candy's not gonna survive. It's like I just didn't know. We were out of money the day I showed up.
You were betting on the snow, not the headphones, right?
I just didn't know. Like I took like I'll hang out for 6 months, and I sort of looked at Utah and said, I don't know if there's enough to keep me here if Skull Candy doesn't make it. I just don't know if there's enough here. And I will tell you, looking back, like one of like the great satisfaction of my career more than anything is building business in Utah. And it's interesting because, during the pandemic, I had the opportunity. Yeah, I didn't call it an opportunity when Clint asked me to do this. It was like he publicly says, hey, Jeremy's going to chair the Economic Impact Committee. And I'm like out of cell reception. I was like, congratulations, that's so cool. Like, I can't do that. I don't have time to do that. What was so satisfying to me is to see the community of tech entrepreneurs rally around this state as a community, not as competitors, not as like people trying to steal talent, but like as a community that wanted to do good. And I was able to talk to a number of friends who are CEOs in California, in Boston, and New York, and I'm telling them about what we're doing, and they said, no way. Like, none of that happens here. In Utah, it's really growing, and it's really getting bigger, but it's still tight, and it's friendly, and there's like this underlying desire for people to succeed and to win, and to me, it's like the coolest thing in the world. I'm not from Utah, but I'm a Utah now. And like 16 years later, we just never go anywhere else because we've made such good friends in this entrepreneur tech community that we just really value. It's a cool place to be right now. And it's early innings. Like, I just think the future, like you can smell the future of Utah. It's going to be incredible.
And it smells like brisket.
Everything good smells like brisket.
I think we should go get some.
I like it. Let's do it.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy.
Cool.